So, working with the archetypes off of the Major Arcana Tarot deck, what I did was I created a list of all the main cards rather than going into the minor arcana, which would be the different suits like the wands and the pentacles and so on and so forth. I'm just focusing right now on the main, the major arcana, and breaking it down into the essence of the meaning. So, for instance, the first one here is the Fool. And what the Fool represents is potential, openness, trust, and a beginner's mind. So taking those concepts, I'm creating some doodles of what that evokes within my subconscious and how I relate in imagery to the meaning of that specific card. The next one is the Magician, also called the Magus. So I'm bouncing between the old Rider deck, which is the most popular, common interpretation of the tarot, but traditionally I've always used the Thoth deck, which is the Aleister Crowley deck. And so I'm using both of the card titles, which vary on only some of the cards. So merging them together, they do still share the same meaning. So we have the Magician Magus, which is self-empowerment, create your world, and skill. High Priestess, Empress, Emperor. I've got them all pretty much jotted down here into my notebook with their meanings and just the imagery that comes to mind when I think about what those things mean. You're digging into your sacred symbol library, so taking a look through your old art journals or other art pieces that you've made, or seeing which classical art pieces really resonate with you. What are those images? What is that imagery? And seeing how those relate to the different meanings. So starting with those, you have 21 cards. In addition, I'm also including, since we're creating our own oracle deck and we're not bound by the rules of the tarot, some moon cards. So you have the new moon, which is for setting intentions, the waxing moon for growth, learning, and healing, transformation, and then the full moon, which is for harvest and practicing gratitude. Waning moon is for letting go, release, cleansing, and making space. So those are some additional cards that I've added to my list. This is from my grimoire, the Altered Grimoire class that I also have up on my site. And then as I went through and completed the cards, I've just given them a little circle. You're not in any rush to complete this whole deck in one sitting. Really meditate on each one and see what each one means to you. And some might come at different times. For instance, not all of these have I created yet on my personal deck. I'm getting there little by little. It's a lot of work to create a full deck for yourself. And you're also not chained just to these interpretations. You might find as you're using your cards that there may be certain concepts that that you want to add as meaning or as added perspective, and you could put those in there. For my deck, I did 2 different sacred cards just because I wanted to add one from the plant world. So one of my sacred cards is of the flower, entwined with another plant, and that's sort of like sacred relationships. They don't all have to have a verbal meaning to you. It could just evoke certain feelings because we are dealing with a visual language. So I have this little launch pad set up as a downloadable document that you could print out, or you could just copy it and put into your notebooks, your journals, your grimoires, and see what symbols come up for you. It's also helpful maybe to create a Pinterest board of your own sacred symbols library, and you can collect and see which images are speaking to you, and then see maybe where those images will come into play within your oracle deck. So think of this as a meditation of your visual vocabulary in your sacred symbols library. So I'm getting started here with a regular deck of playing cards, and they're a great cardstock to use to receive water mediums. The only thing you probably want to do is give it a little sanding with some fine grit sandpaper to take off that super glossy finish front and back. And what that basically is going to do is help the surface receive the primer paint. This is just a 220 grit sandpaper, just to get a little bit of that sheen off of the surface. And you're going to want to do this to all the cards. And what I would suggest is just taking the time, sitting through and sanding through the deck. This way you don't have to go back in and repeat this process. All your cards are just basically ready to go. And you don't have to go crazy and sand it all the way down through the surface. All we're doing is, again, creating a little bit of tooth to the surface. Next, you'll want to prime the cards with a light colored paint. You could either go for some artist gesso, some white acrylic. This here is actually a latex paint that is used as a base for home interiors. I had a lot of it left over, and so basically I've been using it for everything. And it's a little bit off-white, but that's okay. And I'm just going to cover your whole surface. You don't want to put too much paint. We're not looking to get a super chunky texture surface. We're just giving it a nice prime. Using a nice flat brush helps your priming process too, because it'll help you spread out all of the paint nice and even, making sure you get all the way over to the edges. And you want to set that to dry. So I just basically told you that you should sand your whole deck first before you prime, and here I am doing the opposite. So just for the sake of the process video here, I'm going to go ahead and sand these while I'm waiting for these other cards to begin drying. And just basically using this as a time for reflecting what your oracle deck is going to mean for you. I've dabbled with tarot cards for probably since I was a teenager, I've always been attracted to the idea of these symbols that mean these, have these timeless meanings that relates to all of our lives' journeys. And my only trouble that I've had with the tarot system in general was that it did feel a little archaic, I guess. It was definitely made at a different time, in a different language. Perhaps the symbology no longer means what it once did within our modern society. So creating a personal deck that you can use for yourself, that I can use for myself, I feel is going to basically create a more powerful, intuitive oracle system that you can use to consult, to seek a perspective into different things that are going on in your life, give you a point of view that using a language that you are familiar with, and using basically giving you a toolbox of different strategies or different meditations. And so that's why I'm excited about this project of creating that personal deck where you can see which symbols are really kind of speaking to your subconscious, and maybe help you over some, whether they be creative hurdles or life hurdles or emotional hurdles, just basically giving you a launch pad and fresh perspective. Okay, so this one's all coated. Let's check on this side. And it should dry pretty fast, considering that we're not going heavy with our paint. Next, we have to do the back side. And what we'll do here is we're just going to give it a coat of a basic color. You probably don't want to get too elaborate for your back side pattern, because you're going to be repeating it on every single card. So the way that I'm working my deck is they're all going to share the same base color. And I'm just working with a blue acrylic. And again, just working with just enough paint to cover the whole surface. Let's make it a little bit deeper in color. And typically I use a wide variety of acrylics, from craft paints to tubes of the real professional artist colors. Depends on the color itself. I tend to splurge on my purples and my pinks, but you can get some really nice blues and other primary colors with just regular craft paints. These here I had already primed with a layer blue, and now I'm just coming on top with a deeper coat, just to give it a little variation so that my color is not so flat. And I'm just kind of dusting it on. You can still see that lighter blue underneath, and I'm just adding that deeper blue to give it a little bit more surface texture, surface history, dimension, depth. And again, I'm just keeping this backside of the card process fairly simple. At this point, you're going to want to think about what your backside pattern is going to consist of. You know, whether you want to make it a moon or a star, a simple maybe polka dot pattern or stripes. Maybe you have a stamp that you want to use for the back, repeating stamp. What I'm going to do for the back side of my cards is I'm going to do a little star pattern. Give it a celestial vibe. Just making sure. I'm going to try to get as many of these painted while this specific color is mixed. We all know that mixing the same color twice is often a challenge, so just taking that extra bit of time and going through your cards will ultimately make it a little bit easier in the long run. So, as I discussed earlier, we're going to do a little star print on the back of my cards, and it's going to be just basically a focal point of a bigger star with a series of smaller stars around it. And so I'm going to start with a few different variations of different metallic paints. And so this one here is a craft acrylic paint, and I've got all my little teeny tiny paintbrushes in place. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the main focal star. And I'm going to go for a 6-pointed star. Applying that in the middle. Again, using a simple design so that it's easy to duplicate across the whole deck. Clean this up a little bit. Okay, and next what I'm going to do is make the little stars around the outside, and I'm going to use a different metallic paint, which is just this metallic Sharpie pen. And give it a nice little shake, get it going. Usually just work off of a little scrap piece of paper as a palette, because these things do tend to get messy over time. And add my little miniature star doodles. In and around. Smaller versions of the bigger star in the center. Next, I am going to just top it off with another gold paint. If you haven't tried the Mala paints by IKEA, that's in the kids section. They're a ton of fun to use. I'm going to just add little tiny gold dots in the center of each star. And that's the extent of the background pattern that I'm going to do here. I'm going to repeat this process on the back of each card. And set to dry. So, taking the time to really meditate on that general list of cards that will be created and thinking about what images and symbols that evokes within you is really going to help the whole creation process along. Because once you have a series of little sketches in your notebook or on your printout sheet, then you can just transfer those sketches onto your cards themselves. And what I did here is I am just using a pencil and sketching these symbols in and images in roughly onto the card surface, and basically creating like almost little coloring sheets for myself, preparing out the imagery that I have a clear idea of what I want to make, and getting them ready to be filled in with paint. So just go ahead and sketch them out. Don't worry about them being perfect. You're just basically kind of mapping out the composition that's going to be on each card design. You can go as detailed as you like or as basic as you like. Just doing a little doodle here of the tree. And I tend to like the heavier pencils, like the 8Bs, 9Bs, 10Bs for my mark making. Once you have some sketched out, you're ready to paint. I gathered up all my little tiny paint brushes because we are working with some pretty small canvases here, so to speak. And I'm working with an array of different acrylic paints. I've set a selection of colors together to work as my color palette. What I'm going to do here is I'm basically going to use the same color palette for the majority of my cards, if not the whole deck. And so by working on a few cards at the same time is going to ensure that there is a cohesive color palette within the deck itself, and it's just going to help the visual flow of things. Again, I'm also working light-handed with the paints because these are going to be a deck that's going to get shuffled and moved around. So here I'm going to use some of the same pinkish color that I've mixed on a variety of different cards. And I think when you are choosing your paint brushes, you will probably, for the little guys like this, you'll probably want to go with the rounds, and the smaller the better is going to be what gets you inside those little nooks and crannies. Sometimes I'll even give my paintbrushes a little haircut if I need them to be a different shape or a different size. So don't hesitate to customize the tools that you already have to make them more efficient in how it is that you use them, especially when it comes to these small brushes. Every now and then, that's the art tool or art supply that I will indulge myself with, is a fresh new little mini fine paintbrush, because they do tend to get beat up pretty quickly. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to fill in. So ultimately, this is the fun part. This is the part where you get to play with color and you get to fill in the blanks and really bring these sketches to life. Filling it with the colors that bring you joy, that are going to evoke a sense of peace or a sense of connectedness when you're spreading out your cards and looking through the ones that you pull. So I'm basically just mixing all my favorite colors. And again, working in the multiples is going to be what helps your colors really go the furthest, because then you're not mixing paint that gets wasted because it's not being used. But they're all going to share little bits of colors with each other. And then you just go ahead and fill it in. And if you go over the lines, don't sweat it, because after we get all of our colors down on the surface, what we will do is go over the image itself with a fine point pen or marker. So basically what we're doing is we are really just creating the background. And what I'm going to start to do here is maybe speed up time a little bit this way. You can see how these all kind of come together through the painting process. And then just coming back into real time here just to show that further embellishing can be made with some of those little dots with the mala paints again. You could also do the same process with paint and a toothpick or the back of your paintbrush for those little fine dots that I love to add to all my pieces. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be going over all of our paintings with a fine point pen. And you can use a Sharpie. This one here is a Faber-Castell artist pen. It's got India ink in it, which is really lovely. It's in a dark brown color, which I really like. I'll add a little link to it too in the lesson section, so you can take a look and see if you'd like one for yourself. Any pen really that has a permanent ink in it can be used. And all you're going to do here is go over the shapes and the painting, the edges of the painting itself. And so any sort of overlap here disappears just because you're refining your image. You just take your time. Go through your doodle. This one here I've gone over quite a few times. So I'm going to come around painted lines. Even add a few more details that you may not be able to get in there to do with a paintbrush. And just go through each image. Okay, so for each card, we're also going to stamp the keyword onto the card that gives a summary of what the card represents. And so I always have a little collection of stamps every time I see them in the dollar section at Michael's or the $2 section, whatever it is. I always grab one if I like the font. And so I'm going to gather up all my letters to create the word that I want to make. Get them laid out and ready. This way I don't spell them incorrectly because I am notorious for doing that. Stays On is a great ink pad that I always find to be reliable. It's permanent and you don't have to worry about it rubbing off. And I'm just going to gently stamp the word onto the surface of the stamp, the card, sorry. I think having the words on the cards will help with the card reading process too, because you don't have to go digging through a book to see what does this card mean? What did I make this to mean again? So if you have your image and then you have your word that relates to the meaning, ultimately it'll help make your reading more effective. Okay, and I always keep this covered when the ink pad when I'm not using it, so that it stays wet longer. And so you can see here, I've already stamped out the word on this card. Set that aside. And I'm just going to work on this card a bit more, add a few more elements to it. And once you have your card stamped, painted, and everything is as you would like it to be, what you're going to do is you're going to create, you're going to give it a nice coat, Mod Podge or gel medium, any kind of clear coat, whatever your clear coating material is that you like. Again, I will add some links to the products that I like to use, but always feel free to use whatever materials are already in your studio cabinetry. And you're going to do the clear coat of the Mod Podge or gel medium over the front, and once that's dry, you're going to do a clear coat of the medium on the back as well for every single card of your deck. Okay, so now we're just kind of fast forwarding through the process here as I create. So the final stage of finishing off each card is you're going to want to give it a coat of some clear wax medium. This one here, I'm using Butcher's Bowling Alley wax, which I bought probably about 100 years ago. As you can see, I'm finally nearing the bottom. Literally, I've probably had this for 15 or 20 years, and I've used it on all of my book pages. So like my art journal pages, I always give it a finish of clear wax, and what that does is it helps prevent the pages from sticking together, and essentially that's what we need to do for the cards as well, since these are all painted with acrylic. Butcher's Bowling Alley wax, I was poking around online and it seems like the company no longer exists. It was bought by a different company that's continuing the formula, but basically any kind of clear paste wax can be used. And Dorland's specifically manufactures a clear paste wax for artists that doesn't yellow. The Butcher's Bowling Alley wax doesn't yellow either. And I had chosen to buy Butcher's over Dorland's years ago because it was more cost effective. Looking on Amazon these days, it seems that Dorland's is much more affordable in larger quantities. So I'll share a link where you can find where to find the wax medium. Another alternative, if you don't want to use a wax medium, is you could always use a colorless candle and use it like a crayon, color in the surface, and just give it a little heat blast with either a heat gun or a blow dryer, just to seal the wax across the surface. But having a can of or a jar of clear paste wax, if you don't have one already, you're gonna love having it around for all of your mixed media work. So all we need to do here is get a rag, and you're gonna put a little of the paste on the rag, and you're gonna coat both sides of the card. Now these cards, I sealed them all with the Mod Podge to protect the surface before I put the wax on top, just in case the solvent from the wax medium, I didn't want it to smudge any of the inks. And then I'm going to set that to dry. I'm working on top of a sheet of paper so I don't stain the surface with the wax. And I'm doing front and back. And I'm going to do this to each card. And then you want to give it like about a half of an hour to dry. Uh-oh, forgot about these guys. These are the moon cards I created. And basically what I did here was I used a cap from my Mod Podge and I just dipped the edges with a little bit of the white paint and created that as my stencil for the moon shape, and embellished with a little bit of glitter nail polish. I haven't done the backs of these yet. And it's okay. You can still paint on top of the wax, but you'll still have to repeat the process of sealing it again after you paint on it once again. A little more. Okay, so I'm going to let these dry.
So I decided that I wanted to add a patina to my cards to kind of pull out the textures that was created with the Mod Podge and wax, and also just give it an aged vibe and give it a richer feel. So the process is quite simple. The cards themselves have wax on both sides, and what you're going to do is create a blend of black acrylic paint with water. And generally I mix about 2 parts water to 1 part paint. Mix it up real well and apply it to the surface front and back of your cards. What you'll notice when you apply it is that the waxy surface does resist, but that's going to work in our favor because that means it's not being absorbed super quickly. It's giving you a little bit of time to apply and then pull off the paint. So it could seem a little scary at first that you're literally painting over your surface, but most of this paint is going to come off. We're just, what I like to say, I like to call this process bringing the artwork to life, and I pretty much do this in all of my paintings, big and small. Then you just grab a little rag. As you can see, I've used this one before, and gently wipe off the paint. As you're wiping it, you're also kind of moving it around and blending it. If you feel like it's coming off too quickly, just go a little bit more gentle. Flip it over, get the other side. You can see it's still a little wet. And blend, blend, blend. Could be a little messy on your work surface, so make sure you're working on some kind of paper or area that's okay to get the paint on it. I'm going to take a drier rag now to just kind of buff that surface. Just like so. And you can see now that it's all the paint has kind of found itself into the little grooves, and it's just got a richer texture to it, I feel. Get the rest of that off the back. And you can see here, it's gotten into the little grooves. I could pull off more if I want to. And hit up the next, moving it around, getting it all in there. Same on the back. You don't have to use black paint. You could really use whatever color you paint you like. Black is just always my go-to. Give it that carbon dated feel. And continue to buff. I'm using the dryer spot here just to kind of tidy it up. It really does make a world of difference. And now you can see, if I found that there was too much black on the surface, then I can just come back on top of it with the second application of wax and really scrub that in to remove the paint from there. You are going to then also reapply wax again to your patina layer, just so that your cards don't stick together, because now that we've applied that additional bit of acrylic paint, it can get a little sticky. What I'm going to do now is address the edges of the cards to give it an overall finished feel. And I'm just taking a StazOn ink pad and sliding the edge over the surface. And that neatly covers all the little nooks and crannies on the side of the cards. Just like so. Again, I'm using black. You can use any color. It could look really fun in like a metallic gold also, if you have one of those. And then you can repeat that process with all your cards. You can see there, it just, again, gives it just that real polished finish vibe. And it's kind of a nice way to complete the card itself. And it looks good. One thing I always suggest with using StazOn is that you keep that little plastic cover that it comes with. Keeps it nice and extends the life of the pad. Alright, so here you go. I have the patina added to these guys here. I'm going to come back in and add another layer of wax like I showed you before. Let that dry, and that for the most part is complete.
So once you have a nice little collection of cards ready to go, it's the fun part. That's when you can start pulling your cards and trying out your readings and seeing how they are working for you and what kind of tweaks you might need to do. My cards are living in my pouch here. This is from another workshop in my website, my stitchy pouches. And again, I'm not in a big rush to finish the entire deck. I'm just kind of growing it organically as the inspiration strikes. So you can kind of create a little sacred space for your reading and shuffle your deck and see what comes out for you. So the card here that I pulled is my seed harvest card, which is appropriate because right now we're in the fall and it is time to harvest all those seeds we worked so hard in growing over those summer months, those growing months. And I'm using this as a reflection to step back and look at all the things that I cultivated this past season and gather up those seeds and protect them and get them ready for the next growing season, and to enjoy the bounty. Feel free to create your own card spreads. A typical card reading would even be a 3-card spread where you would have 3 cards, one for past, one for present, one for future. So the past card would be events leading you up to where you are now. The present would be a perspective on the current situation. In the future, that could be future actions that you could take to get to what your desired goal is. So a little example here. Do my shuffle. And I'll do 1, 2, and 3. New perspective, trust, and transformation. All right, so I can work with these cards and seeing, using them as a new way of seeing what my current situation is. One thing to also think about is when you do shuffle the cards, you might end up with some cards that are upside down. Now, you could either work with reverse cards or you don't have to work with reverse cards. Normally, within a tarot deck or other oracle decks, if you do get a reverse card, it would basically mean the opposite of what the card would represent. So if this transformation card was upside down, it might be an indication that, you're moving in the wrong direction. Or if my trust card was upside down, it might make me, look in and say, well, why is there a trust barrier? What's going on? Is there something to look at a little bit closer? And same thing with the perspective. But yeah, play around and create your own card spreads. You could even just pull a card a day or a card as you need it. But keep working on them, keep cultivating them, and create a beautiful little home for them to live in. Create a sacred space to talk to them on, and enjoy them, enjoy the process. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I hope you have so much fun creating your own personal oracle deck. Blessings.